Hello, welcome to this episode of Hone Your Speaker Skills, how to be a better speaker. Your toe bone's connected to your foot bone's connected to your ankle bone. Okay, I'm having a bit of fun. But last time I was here, I was talking about story. And like your body has a physical skeleton, so does a story, a good story, where there's a through line, a through thread, if you will. You try saying that after a few. A through thread. Well, with that in mind, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper with you. I talked about story last time I was on, which is a month ago. Quick interlude. That was recorded in the UK. So I've been in the UK and Australia, and now I'm in Mexico. So this is where I'm at for the next few weeks. So we're going to get back on track to having a weekly live. So let's go into the anatomy, the skeleton of a good story, shall we? Because this works whether you're talking about a book, a story in a book, or whether you're talking about a story that you speak out loud. Either way, your words have power and you can take them from page to stage. Shall we get down to it? Okay, now, what do you need? What's in a good story? Well, you need a character, the main character, the protagonist, the hero. Then you can have some supporting actors, some supporting characters, and you've got to have some form of conflict, some form of something that you can boo at, you know, the cheer with the main character, hopefully you, and the boo as to whatever it is that you have come through. Now, the character, ideally, well, it has to be a person, really. And ideally, you are the hero. You're the hero of the piece. Now, what your conflict, your baddie, if you like, now that doesn't have to be a person. That can be something like if you've gone through cancer, that could be your cancer experience. If it's something like you lost your job, it could be your boss or whoever caused you to lose your job, that sort of thing. So you're getting the idea here. You've got the protagonist, yay, goody. You've got supporting characters that may or may not be there. You've got a baddie, somebody you can boo and hiss at. Think pantomime, okay. That can be a person, it can be a situation. And then you've got to describe what the conflict was. What is it? What is the angst, the problem that you have gone through and walked out the other side of, no matter how battered and bruised you were? What was the conflict that you were getting through? Let's see. What else have we got to share with you on that front? We've got the conflict, we've got the baddie, as I've told you. We've got also then the, well, what happened? How did you get through it? Because what you do to start with is we call it an open loop. You open up the situation. And if you really want to keep people on their toes, you introduce another part of the story. Think back to those really good movies that you've seen, and they'll often dip backwards and forwards between the now and the what happened to start with. And you've got that, oh, hang on, where am I? It's enough to keep you on your toes, concentrating, present with the story so that you don't wander off and think about what you got for tea. It's that sort of thing that you can start those open loops. The brain will really lock on because it wants to know, well, what happened next? You know, the cliffhangers. So you can open up those loops. You can have more than one loop open at a time, as long as you close them before you finish. And they don't have to be announced that you're closing them. Those can come in pretty much randomly. And your subconscious brain, your unconscious brain is going to go, oh, is that what it's about? It may not come in at a conscious level, though. So you've opened up your loop. You've told them what the problem is. And somewhere along the line, there will be a resolution. It doesn't have to come immediately, but bear this in mind when you're developing your describing your story. And I would strongly suggest to start with, you write down the anatomy of this story so that you know you've got all the elements involved. So that when you come to rehearse, and you will rehearse, it starts to flow and you can go through it very easily. So what have we got so far? We've got the hero, we've got the villain, we've got, and the villain may be a person, it may be a situation. You've got a conflict, you've got something that there's a reason for the butting heads, if you will. There's something that you know you're going to resolve. There's how you got through it. But what did you learn from it? Because it's all good and well going, oh, well, this happened and this happened and this happened. And the audience is going, well, whoopee-doo for you. What's that got to do with me? So you can put in what your lesson was and then how that can impact on your audience. What's it got to do with them? Come up with a situation, and that would be part of your thinking about the stories that you're going to share. Who is your audience? What's going to resonate with them? What are they going to relate to? Because, for instance, I started off with the toe bones connected to your foot bone. Well, if we're talking to an audience who has not a clue about anatomy, no idea about how the body works, there are people like that, then that's not going to be meaningful to them. You may or may not remember that tune. So that my point is, have something that is relevant to your audience. Be very clear about that, be very specific in your thinking. What is going to resonate? What's going to make sense to my audience? Because otherwise they're going to sit there and go, so what? What's that got to do with me? You know, the Whiffen principle, what's in it for me? Have that front and center when you're thinking about things. So you're going to talk about what the loop was, open that loop. This was the situation I was in. This was the resolution, or you can come to that later, but you're going to say, well, what was the lesson I learned? And then, so what? What's in it for your audience member? What was your little epiphany moment, your little light bulb moment? What's the audience lesson, potential audience lesson, something that you're going to invite them to learn from your situation? Because the whole point of doing these stories is that you are highlighting where the landmines are, because you've been there, you've negotiated the landmines, and sometimes you've had a little bit of an explosion and gone, and you've had that pain that you went through in order to get to your game. And if you're on this channel, you're going to be attracted to me because we both are in the situation of going, I don't want that to happen to somebody else. So I'd like to navigate the minefield with you, show you where the X marks the spot of which you want to avoid. So this is where what's in it for the audience, the lesson that you can invite people to take out of your experience. So that's something to bear in mind as well. What's an action you want them to take? Listening to a story is all good and well, but again, it's back to that, so what? That worked for you. Okay, so what? This is where you come up with you can close the loop off. You can put in there that it would be really good for you to, I invite you to, I encourage you to think about something, make a change, make an action, create a change, take an action. And that could be, come and talk to me afterwards if you want to know more. It could be, jump on my website. It could be any number of different things, but you're going to have one call to action. Bring them along. You've given them enough of that flavor of what you can offer. Now give them something to do. And once I know the purpose, what's behind that story in the first place, then it's going to make more sense. So you can start that right at the beginning. As you're thinking about your anatomy of this story, you're going to think about, what is the purpose? Why am I sharing this? What's my big why? And once you're clear on that, You can then break down the anatomy. We'll put the skeleton, I'll put the headings in the show notes for you so that you've got an idea as to something you can refer back to. Check out the stories that you tell. Do they follow? Do they have these elements in them? You may be speaking at, say, a networking meeting where you've only got your 2 minutes, like I was talking about last time, so that your stories will have to be very sharp, very to the point, because you'll also want in there some form of call to action, which is part of the story. But make sure you get it in time, because quite seriously, if you want to be known for somebody who Rover runs, boring. People want to make sure that everybody has the same amount of time. So if you're networking, keep it really tight. You won't have long to go. If this is tweaking, piquing your interest and you'd like to know more, message me below and let's talk about your stories and how to make the most of them as you go from page to stage. See you next week. Bye from me.